We are live. Okay, guys, just do me a massive favor for the folks that join this straight away. Please just try and share this wherever you're viewing it from. Burge, if you could give it a repost on your platform, mate, that'd be really appreciated.
Yep.
Oh, you have already, mate. You're on the ball. I am not on the ball after the beers we had last night, my friend.
It was a good event.
Yeah.
Wow meetup in London.
It was good. That was the first time I had a beer probably in about 2 months, but it's the first time you and I have seen each other in probably like 3 years, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because we kind of speak all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, for the 9 of you that are in here, just do me a massive favor. Just give the space a reshare. I'm just going to dive on my phone quickly and get this out here. We've got a really good call today with Tyler from Chimpers. It's going to be a really interesting one. I really want to dig into his background. He comes from a traditional finance background. He's done some really big stuff in that space. So I really want to dig into his journey and what he's kind of been up to. Tyler, how are you doing today, bud?
GM guys, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, doing amazing. Thank you.
Mate, I've got a bit of a story to tell you. So last night I walk into this bar in Camden. It's obviously a World of Women party. Burge, believe it or not, it looks like I'm taller than he is. He's actually about 19 foot tall. I get to the bar, and the first question I ask him is like, "Are you drinking tonight?" Because I have this thing where I try and not drink, especially when I'm writing, because I can't literally string a sentence together when I've had a few beers. And before I know it, I'm like 4 or 5 beers deep, and the party is now flowing. We start networking with a few people, and there's this one girl who works in traditional finance, and we obviously exchange X accounts or whatever. And, you know, it's what you're doing in a networking event. She pulls her phone up, and you are in her search history. So I was like, isn't that interesting? I'm interviewing him tomorrow. Usually what I do, Tyler, with a lot of people is I'm like an FBI agent. I spend like when I interviewed V, I did about 6 hours of research. When I did Tyler Gio from Good Vibes Club, I must have put in probably about 5 or 6 hours of like podcasting, really listening to the background. And the thing with you is that because you're not doxed, obviously you're very difficult to try and find information on. I've got Burge nodding along because he's used every AI platform to try and find out about you. But the thing is you are actually a bit of a juggernaut in the space. I'm going to leave people on a bit of a dangling hook there before you come in. And I'm just going to make sure, because we don't have a team behind us doing the technical work, I'm just going to make sure that we're going live from these platforms. It might actually be, Burge, that you do that when I do the intro sometimes, but we're okay. It says I'm live on X.
Everyone's live on X.
Okay. Oh, we're live on Substack as well. That's good.
And if anyone's watching right now, as we finish up this intro, if you can give us a repost where you're watching it, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're usually a little bit slow for the numbers to come up, but we get into our stride about the half an hour point. We start to really hit the masses.
Well, this is it. We were giving Tyler a bit of stick for his fashionable lateness. To be honest, I'm usually the one who kind of turns up late. Anyway, I digress. Guys, this is going to be a real good one. Looking forward to really digging into kind of Tyler's background. Tyler, really appreciate you jumping on. Tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you kind of first got into crypto.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's it's great. And first of all, like, Jayden, I've listened to many of your shows, and I've always been very very impressed by how deep you go into the the topics and how much research you do before getting into a particular subject. So it's a true honor to be to be on this show and to get a chance to speak to you guys and tell my story, but also like talk about my sort of what interests me in this space, despite being a mid-curving TradFi professional at heart. I fell in love with space, and I've been very, very involved in social media and with my wallet as well. So so it's great to be here. But yeah, look, my story is actually it's an interesting one, but one I share with quite a few of my friends. Is basically we are, I guess we're all a part of it's like a financial circle where both I guess Ovi and I guess OSF and Mando were well-known figures, and I guess they started being being mentioned on trading floors as like the guys who bought Bored Ape early and were making millions of dollars, and they were still working at their bank, but everyone in the marketplace knew that those guys were making a killing in NFTs. And I guess one of my colleagues at the place I worked at basically introduced me to NFTs. Like, I had no idea what it was. I just saw they were JPEGs, and couldn't fathom why anyone would want to pay $100, let alone like thousands of dollars for a picture. So he basically sort of like explains the basics of NFTs, crypto, got me set up with a MetaMask wallet, got me to buy my first worthless JPEG.
Your first worthless JPEG?
Yeah, it was. I think it was some sort of like
a whole wallet of shame. Don't worry about that.
It was a Cool Cat lottery ticket, I think, which I paid. I can't remember. I think I paid $1,000, and you had a chance to win a Cool Cat, which at the time were worth like I think $20,000. Obviously, I didn't win and ended up with that a piece of crap on my wallet, and I had no idea what to do with it. But I guess I still remember the first time you move Ethereum from your Coinbase account to your MetaMask, and you go like, where is it gone? And you buy your first NFT, and then you can find it on OpenSea, because obviously I was looking at OpenSea on my browser as opposed to my MetaMask app, and going like, I don't understand what's going on, and just panic because you think you just sent $1,000 into a black hole. But it's just such a fun time to like when you get first hand with crypto. And I guess I've come a long way since that day.
You certainly have. I mean, I was reading about your background. You've done some really big stuff, which kind of goes under the radar. I think you managed over $1 billion division and managed a team of 20 people. Around there might have been a finance strategy. I don't quite understand the TradFi stuff. If you just kind of dig into that a little bit, so people can kind of like understand the caliber that you're coming into this with.
Yeah, look, I started my career. Obviously, I'm French, but I moved to London in 2005, and then started my career in a financial institution as a graduate, where everyone starts, and sort of stuck around that same organization for 20 years, and really got to I guess to master the art of my field of expertise in finance. And 7 years ago, I was given the opportunity to build a business from scratch in a space where my firm wasn't involved at all, but they saw how much money their competitors were making. So I was tasked with setting up the business, hiring the people, and we took that business from pretty much zero to close to $1 billion in 2025. And before leaving the firm, I was managing close to 100 people. So it became a big team with people across all over the world. New York, London, Dubai, Singapore. So it's a big business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm obviously myself and Burge are going on these meetups and stuff, and like I'm actually seeing a growing trend of more TradFi folks speak about transitioning into not just like crypto or Web3, but more NFTs. And it's like I've always thought the TradFi folks would kind of do the DeFi route, and then maybe like the NFT aspect of it is just too far out there on the risk curve for them to kind of lean into it. But I'm actually seeing more of a trend. And actually, I met someone last night, the person who kind of knows you. I won't out them or anything. But it just seems more interesting. There's just like more stuff going on in the space. And like, I say to people, like, the most fun you have is in NFTs. It's
Absolutely.
just like, no one buys an NFT and goes, oh no, this is a bunch of bullshit. It's like, yeah, there's people that may have lost money, but it is really an everything token. I plugged this book a million times, and I'm trying to get the guy on the show. It is the everything token, because of the way it organizes community. Obviously, there's the financial aspect, but now it becomes like, actually, these are my friendship groups. These are the people I'm hanging around with, and these are the communities I resonate with. And that's the complete beauty of these strategy tokens, because it's maybe lean into some of these kind of other projects, but we'll get onto that in a second. I just want to know a little bit about your general thoughts of the current market. Obviously, there's a lot of conversations around the 4-year cycle being over. Some people are still leaning on that. So you got kind of like the memetics of people believing that there's a 4-year cycle ending versus actual liquidity that's coming into the system because interest rates are dropping and financial conditions appear to be improving. I mean, what are your general thoughts? I know you can't predict anything. I know none of this is financial advice. I should have said that at the beginning of the call, but now I'm plugging it.
That's fair enough. Look, I think the memetic, memetics are probably the strongest force in crypto. So I do think this views that there's a 4-year cycle and it has to play out every single time, I think is definitely a very, very strong, has a very, very strong influence on the markets today. And people are probably at like the highest level of fear and doubt that I've seen in a long time, probably in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Saying that, I think on the other hand, you have to recognize that the market conditions are telling us like otherwise. They're basically telling us rates are coming down. We are going to have some minor stresses in a system which are going to lead to more liquidity being pumped into financial markets. Obviously, regulations are more favorable to crypto. Trump is somewhat pro crypto, although he's a bit extractive as well.
He's pro crypto unless he tweets. Unless he tweets about tariffs. He's got his little button there.
Yeah, he's got like the short. He's got a very powerful short money making ability for sure. But he's definitely like most indicators are green when it comes to the crypto markets. But I think you can't you can't fight memetics, and also I think logic would say that the crypto market shouldn't be correlated to equities, but the truth is they are, right? Like if you look at how crypto behaved in the last few months, they basically followed the equity markets, sometimes ahead of equity markets, and with quite a bit of quite a higher beta to the market. So that's why I'm very cautious about the direction right now. I think you just have to be. I'm definitely not bearish, but I'm just cautious. I wouldn't play with leverage. I would really pick conviction plays at this point and just stick with it and make sure your investment horizon is not a few days or weeks, because I think you could be you could get destroyed in that sort of time frame. But at the same time, I don't see a scenario where crypto is over, people stop caring about Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's pretty clear that more and more people are going to invest in crypto through their pension funds and saving accounts. Like we had the news on Vanguard a couple of days ago, which is a big deal. So crypto is going to be more prevalent across society, which I think should be a very bullish news. It's just that basically the people who hold the keys of the market, who can influence the market direction, I think tend to overplay the memetics. And right now, I think the memetics are the 4-year cycle and a very high correlation to traditional markets. So that's why I would be very cautious.
Yeah, when you said high conviction bets, what what are yours personally? And leaving Chimpers aside for 1 second, in terms of some of the majors, obviously there's Bitcoin and Ethereum, but are there any things that you kind of look at that you think, okay, this is just a banker outside of those two?
Yeah, I think my biggest conviction play is probably Bitensor, the Tau token,
Okay.
because I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's basically a network, a layer one, token and network which organizes, sort of like intelligence and work around AI startups. So think of it as like, the miners in Bitcoin are basically all doing the same things. They are solving a math problem with their GPU.
Yeah.
In exchange, they get Bitcoin. In the context of Bitensor, is basically you have at this point 128 startups all doing different things that are actually useful for society. You have like deepfake detection software. You have vibe coding software. You got sort of like storage, like decentralized storage applications, etc. And basically, the Tau token is emitted like Bitcoin, as in like it's a daily emission, which is sort of capped, and you can't have more than 21 million tokens. And basically, the miners who are contributing to the startups are getting paid in that token. And what it creates is basically the ultimate form of capitalism, where all the miners are competing to get the most emission, and therefore, like the people who are the best at a certain task are incentivized to to compete and contribute. And I think, to me, that's like what sort of like crypto was. That is one of the application of crypto, which is to create incentives for the best people at a certain task to compete or collaborate to build something that is transformative for society. And I think Bitensor has like the best at this point, as is the most established token that is trying to achieve that. So I'm very interested, in what's going to happen over the next few years with the advent of AI and the subject of decentralization versus centralization for AI being becoming a big topic. So I'm very bullish on that. I think it's going to be very interesting over the next few years. But that's one I wouldn't buy today, thinking you can flip it in 2 weeks. It's one you have to hold over maybe 2 years. Yeah, maybe 2 years, 3 years. Yeah. I don't know. It's like Bitcoin, right?
So it just kind of segueing, guys, for the 172 of you that are in here, please do me a massive favor. I've got to get better at resetting the room. We've got Tyler Durdith, which I think that's the name from Fight Club, isn't it? It's not.
That's right.
It's not.
That's right.
I was thinking
his real name.
Not my real name.
It's very clever, the spin on it, because he's put Durd ETH instead of Durdin, and it's got the Fight Club spin on it. It's very memorable, and I'll hand it to you. Probably a lot of thought that went into it. But for the 177 of you now, please just do me a massive favor. Obviously, the way the live streams grow is by people sharing it, and that's how the discoverability happens. But Tyler, just talking about transformative tokens, tell me what your initial thoughts were when you saw the stuff TokenWorks were doing, and when they originally launched Punkster or Punk Strategy. What were your kind of initial thoughts on it? There were kind of mixed views on the timeline. I think people were sort of like, it's a bit of a Ponzi. People obviously not understanding NFTs. I looked at it originally and I thought, actually, this is really interesting because it arbitrages the price appreciation of CryptoPunks. And kind of, unless you think CryptoPunks is going away, this seems like a really good thing to get into, because now I can speculate on the price of CryptoPunks without spending $200,000 that I don't have. Yeah. So, what were your initial thoughts, Bud?
Yeah, I was. I saw it relatively late in the process, so I think it was already, fairly pumping by the time I started looking at the tokenomics and try to understand, the mechanics of the token. I think my initial reaction was it's interesting, because as a sort of like a smart contract experiment is very interesting and very clever. Yeah. But without having like spent too much time thinking about like the different scenarios and path it could take, I guess my first reaction was, it's maybe that's not a Ponzi, but it's like it's something that it's a fad that's going to disappear after 2 weeks, right? And to be fair, like many of Adam's experiments in the past were like made the timeline. Lots of people started like playing with it, and then it got forgotten after 2 weeks. So because I think that's what Adam wanted initially. It was meant to be an experiment, something fun for people to play with, and not necessarily.
I think that was part of the. I think that's, sorry to cut you short there. I think it was part of the issue of the branding, is that they called it an experiment.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, if this is something serious that people want to go into size with, if it's being branded as an experiment, it doesn't it sounds very fleeting, and you've still exactly. Like you're kind of treading on eggshells in kind of crypto anyway, because we've just been through probably 3.5 years, the most brutal bear market in NFTs, probably the worst bear market in anything I've ever experienced in my entire life, because you've got like the NFTs, which are hyperinflated, the ETH layer, and then the dollar element not being worth as much, and that all going down kind of below your
is brutal.
Obviously a lot of this is down to Adam and his vision to execute on the entire ecosystem. What were your original thoughts of his launch yesterday, of the website? Any things that you kind of pick up from that?
Look, I think is and I got to speak with him through the Chimpers strategy token. So I got like firsthand interactions with him, and I think he's a very brilliant, very smart, and very and someone with a lot of integrity. So I think the way he launched his platform was pretty flawless. I mean, obviously there were like some bugs and things that didn't work as expected initially, but he I like the way he always, like, he doesn't overhype things. He makes it sort of like fair for everyone. Like no one gets an edge or an early look at making making money on the back of others. It's always like done in a fair way, where everyone gets to compete at the same time for the same things. And I saw the launch yesterday was flawless, and he was a bit lucky to get get it done in a market that was sort of like getting back from hell and sort of like trending up again. So the timing was pretty good as well. Look, I think this recursive token, like, I think that's a pure Ponzi, and that's fun. It's it's for people to play with meme coin. I didn't buy any, and I think that's going to go to zero. Like, all of them are going to go to zero, but it's fun. Like, and as long as you take it as a fun experiment, and you don't overextend yourself on those things, like, it's fine, it's fun. However, I think I'm very bullish on the fact that he's enabling the strategy tokens to be used by the entire space. Obviously, I think depending on the project, he's going to have various degrees of success. Like, I think if you apply a strategy token to a dead NFT project, I think it's going to do absolutely nothing. Like, I don't see anyone spending 90% of tax to buy early into that token, which means there will be no fees, and therefore the token will die, right? So I think it's how you use that strategy token is going to be key for every project to consider. And but I can't wait to see like the first few implementations of the platform for NFT projects. I'm sure it's coming in the next few days.
It's really set it up for these projects. Like, it's almost like the success of the strategy token is down to them and how much they're willing to, like, as we've seen with Good Vibes Club and Chimpers, they've made it their native token, and they've had far greater success with their strategy token compared to the likes of Ape Strategy, Pudgy Strategy, which, massive collections, bigger, we would probably say, in fairness, at this current point, they are bigger NFT collections, Bored Ape, Pudgy Penguins, than Good Vibes Club and Chimpers. But their strategy with that their strategy, and to not, obviously they already had a native token, so it's a completely different landscape when you already have a native token out there, and then you do another strategy token and you don't really make it front and center as Chimpers and Good Vibes Club have. That affects the success of it. So absolutely. I feel like it's set up right now where it's down to the project. And if you want a strategy token and you want to put it front and center, then and you're going to do some fun stuff with it, and probably best to look at what Good Vibes Club and Chimpers are doing.
Yeah,
I feel like it could be a real success for certain projects, but it depends how much they're willing to go in on it.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and I think that's what people need to understand. I think not every strategy token is the same as the next one, right? So I think GVC and Chimpers tokens are very much is an ecosystem token, as in they will be front and center of what the team are going to develop and promote going forward. So what you are buying by buying that token, you are buying sort of like a stake into that project. In the same way, if you buy Rect, you are buying a stake into Rect Drinks and Rect Brands and OSF's future success in developing their Web2 business. But I think, like, if you look at the Pudgies and the apes, it's a very different thing. It's really just a financial instrument, which is you are basically buying, you are long the volatility of the NFTs, right? You're buying sort of an option on the team. It's like turning the ship around and bringing the NFT floor price up. But the team is not going to have a direct effect on the tokens. They're not going to buy that token. They are not going to promote it. So all you are buying is very much a financial instrument. And I think that's very different from GVC and Chimpers.
Yeah, I think you're right there. One of the questions I was going to come on to, Tyler, is about these founders, and particularly what Spencer said on the timeline, which was directed, I think it was at Good Vibes Club. You have some projects like the ones you mentioned, they have their own TGE. So now they have the strategy token. So they've got these two tokens vying for attention. And the commercial upside is bigger for a token generated event versus a project kind of like market buying their own token. So I understand kind of why they probably wouldn't talk about it as much. Someone put a tweet on the timeline or a post on the timeline and tagged me in it. And they were asking why, and you may put some context on this, why Rect had never spoken about their strategy token since launch day. And if you kind of dig into the weeds, it sounds like they just did it because someone else was going to do a strategy token on their token, so they just wanted to be first to it. And I just think it's really difficult with some of these projects that already have TGs to launch a strategy token and for you to want it to be successful. Have you got any kind of thoughts on that? And then we'll kind of move on to more about what you're doing with Chimpers.
Yeah, so I think I think it's so hard. I was thinking about this morning, like it's always so hard to keep the attention on your one trophy asset, whether it's a token or an NFT. Like I think like the space has definitely shrunk over the last 2 or 3 years because everyone got wrecked, and I think many people have left. So I think what you are seeing is like a constant capital rotation to where the attention is. And then if you're in the shoes of someone like OSF, like why would you spend any energy or attention time to talk about the derivative token when you really need like all the attention from your audience to be focused on Rect, which is competing with with Bangu, competing with like the strategy tokens, etc. So it's very hard. Like I would never fault like any founder who already has a token and spend a lot of money and time developing that token because they're not talking about the strategy token, especially if they were not behind it. Especially if they sort of like welcomed it, but like didn't ask Adam to launch that token. And I think that's the case for Pudgy, that's the case for Moonbirds and Ape. Like the teams didn't ask for that token to be launched. So
it's funny how they welcome it because they know that the strategy token was going to sweep up a whole bunch of their floor NFTs, and that's going to make a whole bunch of NFT holders happy. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, now that it's done that, they're not bothered about it. And actually, that behavior is extractive. That's extractive behavior, and it's actually the sign of someone who would launch a TG. That's not to dunk on any of those on those founders, because it's difficult. I mean, they've got 2 tokens that are kind of vying for attention. I just want to come back to your view on the recursive tokens. I actually think they lower the bar to entry. If you look on pump.fun, there are like 50,000 coins being released a day. And I think those recursive tokens that are now deflationary, they're fair launch, so you haven't got snipers. That I think it will be a way for people to launch tokens because of what I just said. They're unlike normal meme coins. You know, if that becomes if NFT strategy or the strategy website becomes the go-to place for people to launch meme coins, this is going to be a whole new ball game for Punk strategy. Like if that's the launch pad, and we have every famous person now has a fair launch method, because don't forget when people, who was the Hot Tour girl? She completely botched her launch. Like I won't. For those of you who don't know, just I think she was in a viral video, and it was like, Hot Tour, you got to spit on that thing. It's awful, I know, but it's internet culture, and so she wanted to launch a Hot Tour token, and obviously the team botched it because the price ran up. Then they sold a bunch of their holdings instead of market buying their own token. So this is a much more fair launch thing, and I think if that becomes the meme coin launch pad, I think it could be really interesting. What are your thoughts? And Birch, obviously dive in here as well. Tyler, do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a hope. I do think that the 10% tax on the way in and way out are going to be make it not as attractive as a pump.fun token, because you basically need to like make 20% in order to be break even, right? So I think for like the degens who are in and out of tokens within a few seconds, a few minutes, like it's never going to be as attractive as catching a pump.fun early that goes up, and then you can sell it within seconds at no cost. So I think there is like a little bit of a friction around the tax, which I think means is not going to replace entirely meme coins. But I do also think that if you are let's take an example. Like let's say you guys or myself, you want to launch a token. If you do it on pump.fun, I think there's always going to be a suspicion that maybe you bundled you basically bundled token or sniped a big portion of supply. It's very hard to prove that you didn't mess around with the supply, right? Even though you did properly, people can always accuse you of like doing something that is well hidden, but actually is not fair. I think with a token strategy, with token works, basically the way they are launched, like there's no way you can mess around with the supply. It's basically as fair as it can get, and it makes it very fair for very, very safe to launch a token for anyone, whether you're a celebrity or a personality in the space. Like I think you can launch a token and no one is going to accuse you of sort of like dumping on your holders, right? So I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you say about the people trying to do a quick flip on the token, I was more thinking about people having exposure to a token to feel a part of almost like a celebrity's IP. Because people actually wanted to collect that Hot Tour token because that was a way of them showing their support for the community and being, because these are community tokens. And obviously you're always going to get those people who trade, but I just think risk to reputation and launching tokens in this way is probably the fairest way to do it. I want to segue slightly into the stuff that you're doing with Chimpers. I did have an opportunity to interview Jacob. Really interesting conversation. Obviously he's UK based, probably the most successful UK based NFT project that I know of. Certainly I don't know, Burge, if you can name any, but certainly on social media, getting the kind of the largest amount of reach. What is the plan for Chimpers? and talk us through a little bit about the Chimpster token and what is kind of your role in that, and sort of growing the awareness around it.
Yeah. Okay. Now that I'll try to do a good job, but obviously, Jacob or Insight is probably the best at explaining the vision for Chimpers. But look, I think like very clearly what the team is trying to achieve is to build a lifestyle brand, sort of like focused on entertainment, social media, fun type activation, and really try to bring that brand into the mainstream, which I think they are doing successfully, through their social media presence. And obviously, like, their TikTok and Instagram followers has grown exponentially over the last 6 months, and it keeps growing. And what has been very interesting to see is that, every time they collaborate with a Web2 brand, I guess the Web2 brand is absolutely amazed by how much weight they have on social media, basically, because they basically the campaign becomes the most successful campaign of that Web2 brand. So if you look at the Fugglers collaboration they did last week, Fuggler is a massive toy brand. They sell millions of plushies every year, and have been growing particularly in the last 2 years. So it's a pretty hyped and trendy type of brand. And I think last week campaign was probably their best campaign ever, and it was basically because the Chimpers guys were involved in it, right? So in terms of views and likes and and so engagement on social media. So I think the idea is very much to leverage that that strength that they built, which is engaging with audiences on social media, making them laugh and engage and have fun, and basically over time find a way to monetize it without being without like forcing it. So I think they've been very, very cautious in terms of selling things to their followers, just because they want first to create the fun brand and the fun image of the image of a fun brand before monetizing it. But at the same time, I think they want to, I mean, as you can see, like, they are very, very engaged on the Web3 side, and they want to keep their roots. And I think the ultimate goal is very much to be the first brand that connect an IP that is mainstream and known by millions of people and loved by millions of people with the Web3 side of it, and basically have this like core community that is built in Web3, those NFTs and digital experiences that are absolutely key to the ecosystem, but sort of find a way to create to bridge those two worlds in a way that has never been done before.
Yeah, I think what impressed me about Jacob was I could tell that he was in this for the long run, which had been in complete opposition to some of the founders that I had kind of got involved with in 2021. Like, haven't heard anything from them. I think a data point that I mention quite often is I think between 2021 and 2023, there were 73,500 NFT projects, and 69,500 went to zero. I started playing around with the data, and I was like, most people have 10 NFT projects. And then I put this into ChatGPT, and I was like, right, okay, if you were just to kind of pick these out of a hat, just at random, and you wanted your 10 NFT projects to be in that small pot of 3,500 or whatever it is, you are more likely to be struck by lightning. It came up with all these different things. You're more than likely to be like reincarnated twice. You're more than likely to win the Powerball in America like 600 times over. And everyone thinks their project is the project that's going to do it. And the other one, which made me laugh, because I was telling ChatGPT to make them funny or whatever, it's like, you're more than likely to get struck by lightning on your birthday twice, then have all of those actually make you a profit. So when you put it into math form, the odds are stacked against you. However, as these NFT projects and communities last, the lasting effect actually increases or extrapolates out into the future. And the thing I loved about Chimpers, like, I would never have looked at Chimpers if it wasn't for the strategy tokens. Let's just first say that, because it's very hard for someone to kind of get into that ecosystem when the floor price is like 0.6. But when I leaned into it, I was like, oh shit, okay, these guys are legit. I like the fact that they're brothers. I like the fact that when I'm speaking to Jacob, he's he's micro activity, but like slow in patience. And he's playing the long game with this, and I like that. I think that some of the stuff on the timeline, there were posts about Chimpers being like the last hype mint of 2022. So they kind of caught the edge of the market, but they've lasted through the most brutal bear market in this kind of like boots on the ground fashion, this kind of like direct messaging. I wrote in my blog that I messaged him at 2 a.m. and he replied. And and Tyler, on a personal level, as someone who's like gravitates towards an underdog, I fuck with that energy. I like that. So it's kind of all good. Like, what are some of the experiences with the brothers, Bud? Because obviously a big part of this is hinged on kind of who they are.
100%. Yeah. No. Look, I think
any insights you can give us? No pun intended.
It's very much the same as you. Like I just love backing the underdog, and I think it was about 2 years ago. I was sort of like licking my wounds on NFTs, going like looking at my portfolio and going, it's an absolute wreck. Like everything is worthless, and I've made so many bad calls, and I basically stumbled around that Chimpers that I minted in 22, and I kept it because it felt like it was one of the stronger projects, but kind of like got absolutely wrecked in 22, 23. So kind of like didn't pay attention for almost a year, and then sort of came back to it 2 years ago, and sort of like started digging into Chimpers, and okay, what are those guys up to? They seem to have a community. They seem to be active on Web3 on the timeline, and so I got back into it, and I looked at what they were building, and very quickly, like I came to the conclusion that it was probably one of those projects that is completely undervalued when you compare it to the majors, but one that has a chance of making it. So I started basically communicating with Insights and Chimpers and Joey on the side to try to get to know them, understand where they wanted to take the projects. And the more time I spent especially with Insights, who was obviously like always online and always like super reactive when you message him, the more I spent time with him, like the more I liked what I saw. And what I saw is like basically obviously a founder that who really cares about his projects, who is really engaged with his community, but like the way he does it is, and I think it's very different from any other projects. He treats every single holder the same way. As in, you could hold like 400 Chimpers like me, or one.
Sorry, hold on. Just say that again.
Yeah,
400.
Hold on. Listen, I've been thinking, Tyler. I've been thinking about getting one of these, like these buzzer buttons whenever like something random happens during a show, and that would have been comedy timing. 400. 400.
Yeah. I bought a lot of them, in particular in April when they were worth like $500.
Do you think are you the biggest holder?
Yeah, by a long way. Yeah, by a long way.
That's Tyler. That's unbelievable. So your bags are heavy, bud.
It's pretty heavy. So I'm working for my bags right now, as you can.
Yeah, I like that because you know what? It's like you mentioned earlier about. I think you said something about owning the token is like a revenue option on the business. And it's interesting that, I saw a post the other day. In a roundabout kind of way, if a company's market buying their strategy token, which is then feeding into the NFT, but they're using it from revenue from the business, by owning the strategy token, it's almost akin to owning a share in a company, because what you're doing is arbitraging the productivity appreciation of the business by owning the token. So it's kind of like, it's not a share. I don't know how the SEC look at this sort of stuff, although probably all bets are off after Trump and Melania token and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting one. Now, obviously, you're in an interesting position because you've effectively got a vested interest in making sure this thing fucking works.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be just working my art, and it's actually a very clever thing that they've obviously now brought you closer into the ecosystem. Now, just and I didn't think the conversation was going to go this way, but you clearly have some impact on what happens with pricing. So you've now been brought into the team. I don't know what your personal things are, but obviously you're your own individual. You can do whatever you want to do. But is there any like discussions with the team about you maybe selling tokens, or like, because you could quite easily just list 50?
Yeah, I could. I have no intention to do that, and I think my approach has always been to be respectful of the markets. So I haven't sold, like, I think I sold a few Chimpers on the way up after token launched, just because they went up quite a bit, and I wanted to get some liquidity to buy the token. So I sold a few, in a pump, but obviously liquidity was very strong at the time. So my sales didn't impact the market. Obviously, in a market where volumes are lower and liquidity is a bit more challenged, I wouldn't just dump like 50 Chimpers. Like people know not all my wallets, but they know quite a few of them. So first of all, I think it wouldn't be great for my reputation, but also like I believe so much into the. I believe so much in the brands and where this is going. Like I'm not going to sell at 0.6 ETH, and I don't need to. Like I've got I got enough money in the bank to live, to survive without selling my NFTs. So
you come from that TradFi background, my man. So it does not surprise me.
That helps.
Do you know? It was interesting. I was listening to a guy speak the other day, and he was like, when he was growing up as a kid, he got career advice. And the career advice was he wanted to go into marketing, or he had a choice between going into marketing or banking. And this family friend was giving him some advice, and he said, if you go into marketing, they'll give you free merchandise. If you go into banking, they'll give you free money. And it's kind of something that's kind of stuck with me, because it's like, if you just stay as close to the center of the sun as possible, these opportunities arise. I mean, look at your situation. Like you were a collector first, and a valuable member of the community, and now obviously these opportunities have just arisen. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, for like kind of trying to be as close to the center of the sun as possible.
It's funny because like sorry to interrupt, but like I was actually thinking about this morning as I was thinking about my just my path up to this point, and when I was at university, I was very passionate about two things, which were encryption. At least not passionate, but I had the interest. I was reading books about it, and it was encryption and artificial intelligence, right? So it was about 22 or 23 years ago.
Wow.
And both of them have nothing to do with what I've been doing in my job for the last 20 years. And like if I'd gone down that path, like whether it's encryption or AI, I would have probably been, in one of the like big companies that are changing the world, and but maybe not as well. Who knows, right? Like maybe I would have been mediocre at one of those and not like get to do anything interesting. But at least my financial background got me to have enough money to be for founders to pay attention to me, which means I got to know people like obviously OSF, but Farok, Insights, all those guys, and I got to like build a relationship with them, which means like I have now like a pretty pretty interesting network that I can leverage, and now is my chance to sort of like make something out of because having this network in Web3. So I think my TradFi background got me there. Whether it was the best path, probably not, but like at least it got it helped me getting there, I guess.
Mate, I love it. So we're reaching the crescendo now.
Okay.
But you can dive in anytime you want as well. But you've launched Chimpster, or Chimpers did, and you've obviously come on as the token strategy lead. I think is that the correct title?
Yeah, I guess token advisor. Yeah, exactly.
Token advisor. One thing that was very apparent to me, especially in this kind of recent drawdown, is the strength that the strategy tokens have shown. And in particular, the teams that have leaned into it. And then if you go another layer down, in particular, the teams that have businesses that generate revenue.
Yeah.
And they're kind of market buying it. So you have this really healthy ecosystem of basically two teams who have survived, Good Vibes Club and Chimpers, who have leaned into the strategy token. And it's like it's a different planet out here. It's like Bitcoin has just done that, like a 30%, 35% correction, but the worst liquidation event in crypto history, like 10 times bigger than what we had with FTX, and there were banks going under. And here you have these two fucking alien assets on a chart doing a hockey stick. Obviously, it's been a bit choppy, but it's shown such good strength. I mean, what do you put that down to? And what is the plan to execute your vision on getting more people to adopt this token or grow it, or what is the plan?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I think I made a few posts. I can't remember if it was maybe two days ago, but I think those GVC, Vibester and Chipster tokens are very different from your traditional brand token in two ways. One, I think the holder distribution is much more concentrated, even though it was a fair launch. I think the truth is, like, most of the holders are going to be part of the community, and they are basically making very concentrated bets in a token. So it almost looks like the cap table of a startup, right, where you have like a bunch of like angel investors who are putting a lot of their capital to take a share in the company. I think it's I look at those like both of those strategy tokens as like almost quasi equity type positions, and I think the holders are basically looking at it the same way and taking an equity position in a project. So I think that means that basically people are less likely to go in and out of the token, even if the market is choppy, in the same way you wouldn't go in and out of a startup investment. So I think that's one reason. It's very much I think a lot of like long-term investors in the token, but also like what you mentioned earlier, which is both teams have been injecting their part of their revenues in a token, and I think what's misunderstood or maybe underappreciated is that in the same way that a company is going to be typically worth or valued based on multiple of its earnings. I think what's very interesting with tokens is that if the company is injecting revenues on a regular basis into buying the token, basically, given the way the liquidity pool works, which is only holding a portion of the token, it's only in the case of Chimpster, I think it's less than 10% of the supply is in a liquidity pool. Yeah. Every time the team spend $1 to buy the token, there's actually a multiplying effect on the price, right? Because it's like that dollar is going to have more than $1 effect on.
It's like the Bitcoin multiplier effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously you've got 80% of people that don't hold or don't sell Bitcoin.
Exactly.
It has. Yeah, I get what you mean.
The price is driven by a small portion of the supply, and if the business start making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, the impact is going to have on that token is I can't imagine it, but like let's say like they make $10 million of revenues next year and inject $1 million, that would like send the token to 100x probably, right? So
Valhalla.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be.
I think that has been like a big driver of the performance, and I think what's interesting is that basically it's a perfect demonstration of why these tokens are fascinating and something people should spend more time understanding, because in a market that is very correlated, where everything is correlated, like just look at CoinGecko and the price of every token, everything is moving down at the same time, up at the same time. If you want to have a diversified portfolio, and that's a perfect investment, right? Because you are uncorrelated, you are still exposed to Web3, and also you have a lot of visibility on what the projects are doing, because both teams are very open about what they are building. Yeah,
I think you're spot on, mate. I think it's going to be a much better bet to bet on businesses that are already generating revenue who then launch an NFT project versus someone who launches an NFT project and then promises to build the business afterwards, because then you've got to go through that 3-year runway of pain, and they might not be able to pull it off. Whereas I think in the way that Chimpers and obviously Good Vibes Club had Toast TV, they were generating revenue. Then they launched an NFT project. And then the strategy token just makes sense because they're market buying their own token. Then it gets you questioning, if that works and you're a founder who has a business, why would you not launch an NFT project and a strategy token at the same time? It just makes perfect sense. It's like, Chimpers are perfect. I really like the two brothers. I really like that they come from working class backgrounds. I like the fact that they're not in fact, I won't say it. I was about to say, there's that famous meme where the guy's queuing up for the lottery, and the woman who's on the news asks him, well, if you win however 90 million or whatever, what are you going to spend it on? And he says strippers and cocaine. I was about to say that. I don't condone drug taking or strippers, so sorry for anyone who gets offended by that, but I like the fact that they come from that working class background and that everything is going back into this. It's not going into some lavish lifestyle. So when you say to me, right, if they generate 10 million in revenue, yes, I can believe it based on the attention they're getting on social media, but also I can believe it based on who they are as people. I think, yeah, I've spoken to Jacob, and I believe that he would probably do that because he wants to feed it into the community. And then it gets you wondering, well, actually, you are right. It's a really good diversified play to a market that's just correlated with Bitcoin. And here you have something that's actually correlated with the performance of the business, which I think is actually a more interesting play, especially if you kind of, you're hot on the pulse with what the company's doing.
Absolutely. No, I think you are spot on. But I think, look, if you think about it from the founder perspective, like the best thing to do as a founder is not to do what the Chimpers guys have done, right? Like the best thing to do as a founder is to raise your money from the mint, basically spend it all in building your company, and then keep most of it for yourself and your investors, and then just basically give the scraps to your community and make them believe that they are still valued. But like, why would you spend, like, unless you truly believe in Web3, why would you spend millions of dollars giving back to your NFT holders to whom you owe nothing? Because it's not equity, it's not it's not a piece of debt. There's no contractual obligation from the founders. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of projects are going down that path of basically a complete decorrelation between the fate of the company and the fate of the NFT holders. I think many people are still delusional about it, so they are still holding on to, I guess, truths that were things that were true like two years ago but are no longer true. But people, because they spent so much money, invested so much emotional capital, they are not recognizing the writing on the wall. But I think I understand the founders as well. I understand that's the best thing to do for the company. But the good thing about the guys at GVC and Chimpers is that they believe so much into the Web3 ethos and the idea of like bringing your community alongside your projects. That's why I spend so much money in Chimpers, is because I knew from the day I spent more time with Insight, I knew that those guys would not leave the community behind. If they were going to make it, they would basically bring them with them. But I don't think that's I don't think there are many projects that are in that camp, unfortunately.
No, there's not at all. Not at all. I mean, most projects ran out of money, right? Like most projects, but they didn't really have a business plan. They didn't try and set up a revenue generating company, and they spent it on all sorts of different things, whether it be events, something that would maybe be flashy and sexy for a few minutes or but it wasn't, long lasting. It wasn't revenue generating. And a lot of these projects just ran out of money. I mean, I know personally, like there were some of the big projects that just ran out of money or were extremely badly managed. And it's because I think, a lot of these people were coming in without experience of running a business. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's not the case. Like, I actually don't know the background of the Chimpers brothers, but they clearly had a knack for, and they had a plan, a much better plan than a lot of other projects. And like I've just had a scan through their through the last few days of tweets and posts from the Chimpers profile. The sheer amount of stuff they're up to in a week is probably more than some of these other projects have done in a few years. The social media growth is one thing. So insane social media growth on Instagram, on TikTok. They've got blind box plushies that are just coming out. They had the collaboration with Fugglers, as you said. They've just posted on the 1st of December a post saying about the strategic alignment with Ape Chain, an ape company. And basically, I'll go into that a little bit because, Jayden, you said about reinvesting funds. Well, what they've just done is they've launched two new NFT collections on Ape Chain. One is Chimpers cards, and one is Chimpers packs, which will be revealed as So it's two collections, but it's around the same thing. And it's Chimpers cards, digitally on chain, I believe.
That's correct.
I'm assuming there's probably Can you claim the physical?
You can claim the physical as well. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. And they've done I don't know when exactly this launched, but it was last month, so it's not been out for very long.
It was eight days ago, so like I think it was Tuesday last week. I think
they've already raised the total volume is about 280,000 Ape coin, which is equivalent to about 23 Ethereum, and they've used that to repurchase Chimpster, and so that's 10 million Chimpster tokens that they've been able to acquire with that's just over the past 8 days. That brings their total holdings in the treasury up to 6.5% of the total supply of Chimpster. So that's you're starting to see a little bit of their strategy here and how they're reinvesting, and as Tyler said, how they're repurchasing Chimpster, and every $1 that they buy has a multiplier effect. So you can start to see, like, when it's great to see great minds trying to reward their holders and actually run an NFT project as it should be done, rather than what we had back in 2021, 2022, which was like a bunch of people raised a shit ton of money with these projects, but a lot of them didn't know at all what they were doing, or didn't have a good enough strategy, or didn't know how to run a business. And the main thing for me is you need to reinvest those funds, but you need to also create revenue-generating businesses. And a lot of projects just didn't do that, did they?
I think that's spot on. I think, Tyler, just obviously the social media stuff is getting a lot of attention. There'll be people in the audience. We know that the attention leads to buying flows of some form, but at what point or what stage do you think they leverage that attention to drive revenue? And I assume it's through merchandise.
That's correct. Yeah. So as Bert just mentioned, they sold out like a small collection of blind box plushies, which I think mostly went to Web3 people, but they also promoted it on their Web3 on their Web2 accounts, and I think they sold quite a few to their fans on Instagram and TikTok. But it was a very small collection. I think it was live for like 8 hours, so it's not like it was like a very long campaign. They sold a few thousand of those blind boxes, and I think the idea is basically to leverage that initial success to do more of those blind boxes, but also like different variations of trendy merch, physical, so like lifestyle, physical merchandise that they will sell to their Web2 fan base, basically. But they also, and that's going to happen in Q1 26. So it's already in the works, and there will be a collection very soon, which is going to be more permanent as opposed to just like a short campaign. And at the same time, they are going to start going into shops as well. So the plan is to go into physical stores, across North America in Q1 26. They have already lined up the partnerships with a few chains and a few smaller independent lifestyle type shops.
Yeah.
So that's going to go live in Q1 26. So it's happening. It's just a matter of executing. It took them a while to perfect the blind boxes because they integrate a chip, NFC chip, which linked to their card apps as well. So it was a bit of development work, but it's done. They are being shipped in a couple of weeks, so we're going to see the first output of that work. And I think Q1 26 is basically going full speed and hopefully spread across the mainstream basically.
No, I love that. So your plan for 2026 then is obviously, let's say I am a Chimpster holder. I don't hold the NFT, although that's probably coming very soon. Number go up. What are your what are your plans for 2026 then? Obviously, I personally think that for a cohort of collectors or NFT collectors who now leaned into the strategy token because they've adopted it as their native token, have kind of seen the brand through, and then all of a sudden you've got the Chimpers business market buying their token, and like you said, the 10 million thing is your job to kind of go out privately and get people to buy the token to own an economic share, or what is it that you would do?
No, not necessarily privately. I think it's to help the team, build the tokenomics of that token over time. Because people when people mention tokenomics, they tend to think about the initial distribution of a token at TG. That's just one, like 10% or 5% of what matters about a token. What matters about a token is what you do with it after TG, right? So, and what you do with it is likely going to change because some things are going to work, some are not. So very much what I'm focused on is, helping them around like the communication to the market of what that token is and what it does and why it matters.
Okay.
Helping them, connect the token to the NFTs. Like obviously there's a flywheel of the token works mechanics, but also like how do we communicate about both sides, the NFT and the tokens? Like what should people like focus on at any point in time? And also like in 2026 we're going to start like seasons of rewards where basically the team is going to not only buy the token from revenues but also redistribute some of those tokens to NFT holders. So
I love that.
And that's going to be a combination of holding the NFTs but also engaging with the brands on social media, creating content on social media around Chimpers. So we're going to try to reward all types of behaviors, which are not just financial behaviors, but also like when people contribute with their time or creativity toward the brands. And sort of like again like provide a feedback loop between the NFTs and token, which is going to take a few iterations. So again, we're going to be experimenting over 26. But what I guess my goal and the team's goal is very much to not only nail the Web2 side of it and make tons of money for the Chimpers team, which I really hope they do, but also to come out looking like the most successful NFT projects, from all angles, not just the brand making a lot of money, but also like NFT holders and token holders feeling like they have been aligned and part of the success all throughout the way. And and you were, I think, or maybe Jayden, you were making a comment earlier, which is it was Birch, I think, but you were saying like it's incredible how much they've done last week. It's true, but like every morning when we sort of like catch up and debrief with the team, it's very frustrating when you have done all that stuff and basically the timeline is completely focused on something else, like some crap that happened on between two influencers or some hyped token which everyone's going to forget for after 2 weeks. And it's very frustrating to be to be doing so much and not getting that much attention. So really my goal is to find a way to turn all that hard work into attention and basically figure out a way to make it very clear to the entire market that this is a place to be if you want to make it in NFTs.
I think the biggest or best marketing campaign for any of this is price.
Of course.
Because just like you've said there, is I was actually chatting to Jacob about this. Obviously, we're sort of coming to the end here, and I said, okay, because I came in from a different angle. I said, well, what are the risks with this? And he felt one of the downside risks might have been the discoverability of the actual token, because they're not listed on centralized exchanges, although that may change in the future. I don't know. So the discoverability of it. However, the best marketing for any of this stuff is number go up. And I think because it's deflationary, because we're going to get the tailwinds of better financial conditions and people having more money in their pockets, and we've had 3.5 years runway watching a really good team execute, and they're feeding the strategy token, they're market buying the strategy tokens themselves. I just think this is just a matter of time now, before this becomes a thing. Clearly not financial advice, but those are just my thoughts on it, because I got the impression, speaking with Tyler, that him and his brother are in this in perpetuity. And actually, if you when I was doing my research before the interview, and I did this with Tyler as well, is that there's actually a Harvard study about brothers working in business together, and in particular, brothers are they outperform. They outperform because, it's like I was speaking to Tyler. He's like, when I go into a meeting, I know exactly what Chris is going to say before he's going to say it. And actually, if you're in business with someone who's not a family member, some of those things create a bit more friction, whereas actually they kind of know each other, and they brush it off. And actually they move on friction a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So actually it's almost a way to hedge against your investment. Is like, actually, let's just find some brothers. And it just so happens to be that there's two sets of brothers that have both adopted the strategy token. So there you go. Not financial advice, because they might next week they could probably both sets of brothers fall out with each other and never speak to each other again. Which I think is unlikely.
Yeah, it's unlikely.
Which I think is unlikely, because actually the and I don't want to steal your thunder here, but the study goes into the fact that the reasons are that because you spend time with each other as family, is you don't want to sit there at Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner or whatever it is, and your brother's still doing the business and you've bailed out of it, and then it ends up being a success or a failure, and then like people just can't live with that, so they just stick at it for longer, which is a real interesting psychological thing, which is brilliant. Tyler, I really appreciate you jumping on the show. I know we were meaning to do this for a long time. Obviously, there's 621 people listening on various platforms. Where is the best place that people can follow you, find out what you're up to, and how you're trying to grow the Chimpster token?
Yeah, look, I think the best place to follow me is on X, Tyler Durdiff, and I try to take a page from the brothers' book, so I'm very available to everyone in the community or outside the community. I'm always happy to share my views on things, and more people come to me for advice or to get to learn about the things I'm passionate about in crypto and Web3. So that's the best place to find me. I need to open my DMs, because I think for a while I was protecting from the scammers, but I think now I'm a bit more public. I probably need to open my DMs so people can. It's easier for people to reach out to me. But that's the best place. I try to post a few times a day, not just about Chimpers, but I like to post about my views on the market and other projects I find fascinating. And there are quite a few. I think I'm a little bit bearish on a few NFT projects, but I'm very bullish on where this space is going. And I think there are very, very interesting companies being built on Web3 foundations, and there are quite a few I'm following closely, which I think are going to become giants in their in their own lane. And I think there's I just love to talk about those things, because I think it's fascinating, and it's one of those rare places where you can actually financially participate early, as opposed to in AI or robotics, where unless you're a billionaire, it's impossible to it's impossible to get exposure to it. Like in this case, in Web3, you can actually buy, potentially the next Google or the next Facebook or whatever. And I think it's just a matter of like looking for it and just being patient. As you said, Jayden, like it's, those things never play out in the time frame you gave yourself. It's always longer. And it's true in traditional finance as well. I've made many investments which are doing well, but they are taking 3 times longer than expected, or the founder expected.
That's what happened.
So I think it's a matter of being patient, which is very hard in crypto. I think most people tend to be to dismiss an investment just because it didn't perform for 2 weeks, which I think is insane. But that's kind of the way it goes in crypto. But I do think there's going to be incredible amount of wealth to make in that space if you are patient and you just keep your eyes open and just like speak to the right people in the space, and there are lots of smart people. So yeah, that's my conclusion.
So, Tyler, just quickly, one thing you're bullish on and one thing you're bearish on.
I am bullish on teams that align themselves with their community. I think that's the biggest benefit of operating in Web3 and crypto in general is that the community becomes the extension of your company, and they become the most hardcore marketers and promoters and users of your products. So I think, but also like they are also going to be very quick at dismissing you if you make the wrong moves. So I think I'm very bullish on teams that align themselves with their community, who share in the wins, communicate. So I think that's the people I want to bet on basically. I'm very bearish on the over speculation happening in the markets. Like I hated meme coins. Like I completely missed meme coins.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. But
yeah, I completely missed it because I didn't get it. It made no sense. It was clearly the foundation for so many scams and loads of small people with not much money were getting absolutely destroyed. And I just hated like the sight of it. So I'm happy that meme coins are not as popular as they used to be honest. So I'm just not very bullish on over speculation and influencers just basically pushing it day after day on the timeline, and anyone who sort of flash a PNL or tell their audience how much money they made, it just is a turn off for me. So very very bearish on influencers who basically further the narrative around over speculation and the casino, internet casino narrative in crypto.
Awesome.
Burge, thanks for your input there. Tyler, thank you for joining, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to the 640 of you that joined us. That was a heck of a conversation. If you want to join us, it's the same time next week, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wherever you are, just do me a massive favor. If you want some of the deeper insights, I'm actually, after each of these live streams, I do a written piece. The written piece goes out on carrotlane.com. So you can just subscribe, chuck your email in there, and you will get email content or written form content, which is really good. Guys, thanks for joining. Tyler, thank you very much. Burge, thanks again. And until next week, see you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.